वेलकम टू मेन स्ट्रीम विद हरप्रीत तूर। आप सब नूं प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब एंड सलाम। Today is actually the last program for 2022, and next Tuesday it's going to be 2023, the beginning of 2023. So we're going to take some assessment of the happenings in 2022 and how these happenings they could affect 2023 and beyond. Some of the events which happened, we probably even have forgotten about it, or they are in the back of the mind till we talk about it. For example, the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson retired, then I forgot the name of the lady, I will get you the name, who came in for a couple of days. And she had to resign, and then the Sunak became the president, the Prime Minister of British United Kingdom. And they have this whole thing going on with the Brexit, and then on top of that, the war in Europe, Ukraine, that's another issue which we are going to discuss about how that is affecting. So we are just going to take a look at 2022, including the elections back home in India. The elections took place in Punjab, in Himachal Pradesh and Gujarat. And Punjab, we know what happened. Nobody thought that Aam Aadmi Party will win so many seats. This is unprecedented in history of Punjab. But at the same time, in Himachal, BJP lost. In Gujarat, BJP won by huge margin. And in 2023, there are 5 states are going for election in India, and already the Prime Minister Modi from India, he's already in the northeast, where 2 states are going for election. He's already into the election mode. And I personally, I haven't seen any Prime Minister. I have been watching since Indira Gandhi onward, then Morarji Desai, then Indira Gandhi again, then Sanjeev Gandhi, then Narasimha Rao, then Mr. Vajpayee, then Dr. Manmohan Singh, and now Modi. And I think Prime Minister Modi is the only Prime Minister, if I can recall, that who goes into so much states to, talk about whatever he wants to say. Whether those are the facts or not, that's a different issue, because when the facts are checked on certain things which he said or he says, they come out not 100% correct. But then again, we are going through that change in all over the world about the leadership, that they are not honest. Politicians are not they are not known to be honest. And even in United States, with the election of our previous president, Donald Trump, a trend was set up where we have this congressman-elect from Long Island, Santos, who made up the whole thing. So we can go on and on and on. But the question is, within 2022, starting from ourselves, what we have achieved, what we thought we will be able to do, and what we achieved, what we didn't achieve. And in 2023, when it starts, on my next show, I definitely will touch on some of the aspects which I personally, I'm going to talk about it today also, believe that they do matter in the long run. In the short run, they may not look that much an issue, but in the long run, these small things, they make the difference. And I actually was having some discussion with a very close friend of mine only yesterday, who happens to be with the New York Times, and we were talking about how things, the media affects our way of thinking, our way of coming to decisions. And the election in United States Congress, some Senate seats, they have their own results. And like from the very beginning, I was saying this thing that the House will flip, the Senate will be 51 Democrats. And everybody have their own way of doing the calculations. We have this people on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, you name the media, and they have these New York Times, Washington Post, HuffPost, Politico, we can go on and on and on, LA Times, Boston Globe. They all have their own statistic people who go out, who do the study, and they come to some conclusions. But I have my own way of doing it. And I, so far, knock on wood, I have been on the dot. We predicted in, like I have said earlier, in 2016, October 27th, I know I was sitting right here where I'm sitting today, that with me, I had Dr. Bhaswati Bhattacharya. We predicted that Trump will win, and he did. 2018, we talked about that how Democrats are going to take over, the House, and in the Senate, probably they will gain seats and or lose seats, which happened 2020. We talked about, and I still remember calling a very close friend of mine who was so much pro Bernie Sanders guy. I could not believe these people who actually were Bernie Sanders fans. They were the people who actually were involved in bringing Trump to forefront for American politics. And what happened after that, it's a history. And so Joe Biden came in, and 2022 actually for America itself, it went down. It's going to go down on history, one of the most productive year legislative wise. But at the same time also, the election deniers are still out there talking about it. And Carrie Lake is one of them, and she actually got penalized by the court for falsifying the information and not giving the facts, not talking about the facts, and making up the stories. And also, we also look at Rudy Giuliani. Again, Rudy Giuliani, some people who know me, even before he became the mayor, he came to Sikh Culture Society Gurdwara on 118th Street in Richmond Hill. And after I met him, I told the management of at that time that he's not going to come back again. And nobody believed me, he never did. But we had after him Michael Bloomberg. I think even though we don't like he got 3 terms from the city council, but at the same time, there is something which I have to admire about him, that in 2002-3, March 7, when the Richmond Hill Gurdwara caught fire, fire was still simmering when the mayor of the time, Michael Bloomberg, he showed up on the scene, and there were talks about that there may be some people who played dirty after 9/11, and it could be somebody who set up the whole thing, set up the fire, started the fire. And we, within our own community, there were some leaders, if I may say so, who actually were sitting here in Just Punjabi studio, and they were like, "Oh, main aag nahi lai." I mean, who said that you did it? But then again, let's forget about that. Let's stay on what I'm saying. And after that, when we had a temporary place of worship, Michael Bloomberg still came there, and which itself was a big deal. And then, you know, we have our previous mayor, Bill de Blasio. A lot of people don't agree with him. People are still debating about good and bad about him. And I happen to have really close relationships with him. And there were things which we talked about, you know, I got a couple of things done from him because he was one of those who will listen, or you can say that I had his, you know, ears. So because I had his ears, so he was one of them who actually was someone who did a couple of things, including whether Bharvi Desai is taking the whole credit for TLC and yellow cab industry, whatever has happened to them, but actually it was him who started it. We need to understand the process in this country, that how the things get done. It was not Bharvi Desai. I always say one thing. Bharvi Desai, read what it says. It says that taxi and yellow cab drivers union. Okay, she is the workers union, not the medallion owners. She never represented medallion owners, even though a lot of people, including our own Punjabis and Indians, they don't understand the difference between being the business owner and being an employee. How a person who represents the employees can take care of your interests, I still don't get it, but anyway. So in 2022, yellow cab industry also got some breaks, and then, but on the other hand, also in 2022, in 2021, Joe Biden got a credit, earned income credit, advance credit for the childs, which expired on December 31. It did not get renewed because of the Senator Joe Manchin from Virginia. He was the person who blocked it, and it never got renewed in 2022. At the same time, in 2022, we had a couple of legislative victories, if I may say, for the people who care about the climate. There were bills where those were passed and signed by the President Joe Biden, where you get a lot of credit if you want to do something with green energy, solar on your rooftop, or solar wind power, and other conversions to having your electric vehicle instead of the diesel and petrol. And I'm just going to throw in here this thing, that Toyota does not believe that 100% it should be electric vehicle. Toyota will not do it, even though they are not talking about it. And I personally also think that there is nothing like where 100% electric vehicles. We will still have something on diesel and gas in the world, and even in United States we will have it. Proportionately the ratio is going to change, no doubt about it. But going back to certain things, yes, we are going to see some of the effects of the legislative victories which the current President Joe Biden had during this year. We will all see the effect in 2023. So let us take a break, and after the break I will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. Liz Truss was the one who actually became Prime Minister after Boris Johnson and before Sunak became the Prime Minister of United States. So that is one thing. Now let us go to the next issue. I'm just picking up few of the issues which really affect not the world, of course, no doubt about it, but also at the same time South Asians. We had issues in Pakistan, okay, which is very next to India. Of course, it was part of India, but it is an independent nation now. There are people who don't like it. They are like, we will eliminate the Pakistan from the map of the world, but history is history. History repeats. The border always change in the world. If we look at the boundaries of the world, I think after World War II in the world history, this was the longest period when most of the countries, they just had a status quo on the border, except Yugoslavia broke up and became different countries, Serbia, Croatia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And there are already issues in Serbia on the border with Bosnia and Croatia. So we have Europe, Ukraine, and then we have that. But talking about the Pakistan for the moment, the ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Khan, he was removed, and new Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, he came in, and government charged Khan with Pakistan's anti-terrorism law. See, that is something which I spoke last time also. In India, Prime Minister Modi and BJP, they passed a law in their last election before they got re-elected, where they have this law where they can pick up a person just by labeling the person that to Anti-Terrorist Prevention Act, that this person was going to do a terrorist activity. They don't have to provide you any proof, and they can pick up the person, put him behind the bar. And believe it or not, there was a journalist in UP who actually came out finally after about 2.5, 3 years behind the bars, fighting in the court against that law. When the law was passed, there was some discussions, but after that everybody forgot about it. And like they say, these are the laws they heard when they hit home. From the distance, it looks like, okay, that's fine, that's okay, we want to protect this, we want to protect that. But are we really protecting it? No, we are not, because we are actually choking the democratic setup and stuff like that. But anyway, going back to the Pakistan issue, so that happened, and also the floods in Pakistan, they were devastating. At one point, close to 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater, even though there are a couple of places where you see the people, they got together, they decided that we are not going to leave our town, our village, to the mercy of the government, which is telling us to vacate, but we will protect our village by building up, the embankment around the village, putting up the dirt, and protecting, and they succeeded. There was water all around, except in those couple of places where they decided that we will not leave and we will face. Yeah, it was not easy. but they did it and they succeeded. That shows the human side of the commitment and what can be done if you put up your mind on that. And after that, now let us move over to Ukraine. In February, Russia invaded Ukraine. When Russia actually, USSR, which was previous before Russia became Russia, when USSR broke, United States, Britain, France, China, and Russia, all these five security members and veto holding powers, they decided to protect the borders of Ukraine, to give up the nuclear bombs which they had, that the border of Ukraine will not be touched and they will protect. And guess what? Russia decided to invade Ukraine after the bombs were gone and everything, and Putin decided to make Ukraine again as part of Russia. And there was this thought that within a couple of days they will be in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, and then the whole Ukraine will be run over by Russian troops. The president of Ukraine, Zelensky, he decided to not to leave. And when he was offered that, okay, they, the NATO and Western country, they were like, okay, we will give you airlift you. He refused to do that, and he said, no, I'm going to stay and I'm going to fight it out. I'm not going to leave. And Russia never was able to capture the Kyiv. Yes, there were some eastern districts which, we can say district or, district, because even those states were not part of the Ukrainian side. Those states were not completely overrun by the Russian forces. So not only that they failed to do that, but they are getting pushed back now, and Western countries are actually, NATO and United States are supporting Ukraine to the hilt. And in the meantime, Russia is quietly getting the support from China. India is providing indirect support by buying the oil, which is Indian national security interests, which I can understand. A lot of people, they may talk about it in a different fashion. There are Americans also, they talk about it that India is doing but India has its own national security interests. So they have to look at their national security interest, and based on that, they are actually doing what they are doing, which is buying the oil at a cheaper rate, even though you don't see the oil prices going down at the pump, because that extra money actually is going to cover whatever the government expenses are out there in India. So that is something, with the Ukraine war, also the inflation came in, and the couple of reasons for the inflation, even though in United States they talk about that, $1.6 trillion, which Joe Biden passed the bill, that created inflation, which is not true, because that was in US. If that created inflation, then what about Europe, where inflation is even worse than what is in the United States, in Canada, in other countries, including India. So that was actually indirect effect of two factors. One is Ukraine war, because from Ukraine you have the wheat and you have the sunflower. Those main ingredients for any food item. And the change in the weather, the temperature, the production of olive oil and all those other items which go towards your food, the production was less. It's probably going to be even less in 2023, and we will definitely go on looking at that trend of inflation going up. It is easing a little bit, but in 2023 also we will still have inflation probably in the range of 4 to 5%, if not more than that. So we will literally see how the things go in 2023 about that. And talking about that Ukraine effect of everything. And then Iran providing drones to Russia using those kamikaze drones, and North Korea providing supplies to Russia in exchange of whatever they want. And there is a probability also that because North Korea is definitely advancing on its nuclear capabilities and missile technology, and Russia may be indirectly helping that, even though China is also helping North Korea, because South Korea is aligned with the United States. And so that is another political thing. And so as we see that these are the things which are coming up out in the open slowly but surely in 2022. How they will play in 2023, we will see, because a year is nothing when you look at the history. We talk about history in thousands of years, hundreds of years. We don't talk history in 1 year or 2 years. You lay the groundwork now to start something, and it takes time. Like, you plant a tree, it takes about a couple of years before it starts giving you the fruit. Same thing with anything else. When you start doing it, it takes time. So that's why a year is just a blink of an eye in the history. So let us take a break, and after the break we will continue, and we'll discuss further about 2022 and what to expect in 2023. Welcome back to Mainstream. Like we were talking about the things happening in last couple of years, like since 2016, the election of Donald Trump, we had the people moving, like they say, to the right, and after that the people are moving to the left. So the media actually plays a big role in deciding right and left, whether we agree or we don't agree. And like I always say, yes, I have my views, but when I'm sitting here, I try to give the information which you should actually look at it. And if there is something which you feel like I'm not talking about it, I would like you to actually contact me. You can write an email to me. It is simple, hstoor@gmail.com. It is initials of my first name, middle name, and my full last name, no period, nothing, hstoor@gmail.com. So you can always send me an email and leave your comments and everything. And yeah, we are talking about how the things in 2022, the elections in the United States, how it affect the left, even though they are talking about left moving forward. But I think it is not really the left moving forward. It is like there was too much extremism on the right, like there was too much on the left also previously. And in 2020, excuse me, after Donald Trump became the president, whether we like or we don't like, There were Democrats who said he is not my president. Even I was one of them who always I will say in joking about it that he's not my president. Not that he was not my president, but what I was saying that the policies I don't like. Same thing with Mitch McConnell. I always say I love the guy, but I don't like his policies. He passed a bill, omnibus bill for $1.7 trillion, which will keep American government running till 30th of September. Even though the incoming majority of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy and some others were saying don't do it because we are going to take over the House on January 3rd and we will do it. But Mitch McConnell, I got to say, and I admit that he is a really smart gentleman, a very smart senator, and you don't stay the leader unless you are really smart. So there were actually 68 senators in favor, which means 18 Republicans voted for that bill, and Mitch McConnell was one of them, even though Kevin McCarthy was saying, there were some other senators also saying about it, but no. And interestingly, he's also the one who mentioned about not picking up the right candidates for the election, and that's why the Republicans could not really get that many Senate seats. And I agree with him. He's right on that part. And still, there are Republicans who are afraid of Trump. And for me, it is a shock, if I may say, and it also makes me look at it and feel like that this is not right, that Democrats are being blackmailed by the extreme leftists and Republicans are being blackmailed by the extreme rightists. And majority of the people, they don't like either left or the right. They want normal life going. We may not agree with each other, but it doesn't mean that we have to shoot the other person dead, or we have to just yell at the person just because we don't agree with the person. That's, in Indian media, when you watch the news, they put up all this shenanigan, if I may say, that they will yell at each other, they will not listen to anybody. You have these 5 different people from 5 different political parties as their spokesperson, and they are yelling at each other, but they are not listening to either one of them. And they are not talking to each other, they are talking at each other. And same thing is happening here in the United States also, because a lot of these new trends are like, if there is something which you don't agree, immediately it becomes an issue of either left or the right. And even the universities are falling into that trap where and this is a new trend, and I am hoping that in 2023, somebody will be sane enough to try to at least put brake to this trend and start reversing it, bringing it to the sanity instead of insanity. I always share this with my viewers, and I'm going to share it again today, that Iranian President Mohammad Ahmadinejad was here in the United Nations in New York to attend the annual UN session. Columbia University, who happens to be in New York City, invited him to be the speaker. The mayor of the New York City at that time, Rudy Giuliani, wrote down to the chief of Columbia University, the president of Columbia University, to disinvite the Iranian president to come and speak. And the president of Columbia University wrote to the mayor respectfully that when I will need your advice, I'll reach out to you. This is an institution of learning, and for us, conversation is important, and he's going to come, and he did go, he spoke, even though the questions which were asked him, he never answered those questions, because he did not answer those questions. At the end, he was told that you did not answer the question. That is how you deal with it, not by shutting down the other person or the other party just because you don't agree with them. You may have your own opinion, no doubt about it, but you cannot dictate, or you should not be dictating. You know, I always quote this thing in Guru Granth Sahib. We always, read about it. Thal vich tin vastu payu sat santokh vicharo. The facts, the truth, santokh, the patience, vicharo means have a conversation. Think about it, what you're doing. Think about the end results, what would happen. Those are the things which we talk about. So that is important, and we cannot, and I'm hoping against the hope that 2023 will be more at least we'll try to get more into the center. And sometime when I have conversation with the people, one of the reason I always give about, I'm going to bring in the President Joe Biden, because I always say that I like him. The reason is because he is, at least publicly, he's not telling anybody to go and kill somebody. His policies, we may not like all the policies, but at the same time, there are things which he's doing. I will give you a perfect example. Previous president Donald Trump always bashed China with anti-China rhetoric, while he was talking in the back, having business dealings. His daughter was having business dealings and having other business interests in China. Joe Biden is not saying anything, but quietly he is making a lot of things go through different changes, where he actually is pushing the industry, the tech industry, the semiconductor industry, to manufacture those chips here in the United States. The precious metal which are used to manufacture the chips and other things which run our everyday appliances, phones, everything. China dominates that now. So US is investing in that also. So slowly but surely, in the long run, he is actually doing more damage to China for China's advancement than what Trump did in his 4 years. Joe Biden has already done more damage to China in his 2 years, and we will see. So let us take a break, and after that break, we will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. We're entering the final segment of today's show, and before we talk about anything about what I expect in 2023, there are a few things which I want to share with you. We already know what happened in Buffalo. It is still snowing there, and they may get some more snow. And it has been really a sad situation over there, with so many people dead. Throughout the United States, close to like 50 plus people are dead because of this snowstorm, about 30 just in Buffalo. Yeah, it is called the storm of the century, but these are the effects of weather change also. What is happening, even though people are in denial, but definitely things are changing. I always share this thing with you, those people who are of my age. We do remember when we were back home in India, we used to have the monsoon, which means it will rain continuously for a couple of days, on and off, the clothes won't dry. But it's not like that anymore. It's a different kind of monsoon. Same way, there are changes in the temperature of the ocean, and the North Pole ice is melting, the South Pole ice is melting, and even the bees and other insects, there is a reduction of more than 50% in the overall in the world, and those insects, they actually play a crucial role in keeping the environment balanced. For example, when we used to travel long distance, by the time we will reach from point A to point B, the windshield was always full of all these insects hitting the screen, dying there and leaving their mark on the screen. By the time you will reach the destination, you have all these pot marks on your windscreen. They are not there anymore, and we don't think about it. Why? We just think, oh, it's clean. No, it is not clean. It is actually reducing the long-term effects of the world's population and everything, and how the world will grow, and how what we are leaving behind for our kids. So and also on the other side, with the China, with relaxation of their COVID policy, there is a uptick in the COVID cases in China. I think one of the reason is because not just because they were controlling it properly, but also they were keeping a tap on the news. But somehow it's not like that anymore. Again, it is a human nature. There is a time when you accept authoritarian things just because you feel that, okay, it is safe, I don't have any issue, I'm getting food, I'm getting clothes, I have a place to live. But then there comes a time, when you have all those facilities, then you want to move beyond that, and then you start looking at it, and then you say to yourself about it, that how and why about these things. And so we are actually, when we look at all these things, everything is connected one way or the other. In Eastern mythology, Eastern thoughts, they always talk about how everything is interlinked one way or the other. Yes, this COVID thing has come as a plague of the century, no doubt about it. Like in 1900, there was a plague, and black fever also at that time. A lot of people, millions of people died. Same thing happened with COVID now, and it is still around. So you better be careful. If you guys who are watching the show and they believe in getting vaccinated like I did, then get the booster. I'm also going to go and get the booster. I'm the survivor of COVID. You probably know those people who actually have seen my video after the COVID, which I put out. So that's another thing which we have to look at. And also at the same time, the Supreme Court has extended the Title 42, which actually keeps the undocumented immigrants south of the border in Mexico instead of allowing them in. It definitely has given a break to the President Joe Biden, but at the same time, let us take a look at it from the other perspective or the other angle. And that is, this country actually has three branches. It has legislative, executive, and judicial. Legislative is the House of Representatives and the Senate. Executive is the President, the White House. And judicial is Supreme Court and the other courts. So what is happening in recent years, that somehow the Congress is losing its power, and Supreme Court actually is exerting more power. Look at Roe versus Wade. 50 years and they turned it over after 50 years. It was Supreme Court who codified Roe versus Wade. It was Supreme Court who, rejected it. It took 50 years to the people who were behind this whole thing. They were planning that how to do it, and finally they succeeded in overturning Roe versus Wade. But interestingly, the people who decide about it are the men, not the women. The men are deciding about the women. And then at the same time, we talk about the women have the equal rights. That actually is a contradiction in itself. And there was a senator, a Republican senator, who actually made a statement that men know better about the women's health than the women know themselves. What a joke. But anyway, so that's another thing which happened recently. And one more thing which is very much in news is George Santos, who actually won from Long Island, Queens Congressional District of New York, Congressional District 3, as one of the Republican representative, and he lied to the hilt, even though he questioned Zimmerman about Zimmerman being honest, and now everything is unraveling. He said he went to college. He never went to the college. He said he is a Jew, Jewish heritage. He doesn't have that. He's saying I'm not a criminal. Just a question. If you apply for a job and you lie on your resume, and first day you go in there and they find out that, okay, you lied, you immediately get fired. But over here it's like, well, he got elected. It's the people who will decide. Why? Because of the political power which gives the balance to Republicans, because they need him. So for me, I have seen America coming to this point where they used to be very straightforward. If something is right, something is right. If something is wrong, something is wrong. But it's not like that anymore. So that's the sad part. What would happen with him? I don't know. But maybe by the time I come to the show next year, in 2023, maybe I will have some answers for you, or I will have some more questions for you. I don't know. But in the meantime, have the best of remainder of 2022. Have Happy New Year, and I will see you on January 3rd, 2023. Have a good night and good luck.